Thanks for joining us for a new video. This time we have a full review of the Motorola Razr 60 Ultra. Let's get started. This is the most advanced folding vertical format that Motorola has released so far. It is undoubtedly high-end, although its price, believe me, is very high. In Mexico, it has been launched at 32,999 pesos, which is approximately $1,715. It is available in a single configuration with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a terabyte of storage, which in some ways could justify the high price tag. The price is so high. It doesn't compete with other vertical foldable phones, but in price, it competes with top models like Galaxy S25 Ultra or iPhone 16 Pro Max. The truth is, the price will be a major obstacle, but keep in mind it has wide distribution, not just in Motorola stores, but also online in department stores and through phone companies. Now, this means you might find it in a special promotion. Now join me to learn all about it. Let's begin with the design by examining it in its folded format. Here on the external display, we will encounter Gorilla Glass Ceramic, which is a new type of thinner glass developed in collaboration with Corning. According to Corning, this glass is capable of withstanding multiple falls on asphalt. Although it lacks an anti-reflective finish or similar features, it appears that in terms of resistance, it will be quite impressive. This glass also features a curved finish along the edges, which provides a seamless and excellent integration of this screen. On the right side, we find the volume buttons along with the on-off button are situated in a metal frame. Specifically, this is an aluminum frame that provides excellent protection for the device, especially before any accidental drops or similar incidents. On the left side, there is a newly introduced button known as the AI key. This button is unique in that it does not activate with just a single tap. Instead, it requires a long press to access Motorola's artificial intelligence tools, which I will explain in more detail a little later. With just 2 taps, you can enter directly into the chat mode of this artificial intelligence, which is designed with a particular focus on this type of tool. At the bottom, we notice additional microphones accompanied by a large perforation for the primary speaker. Following that, there's the USB-C port, and then the tray where we will place only a SIM card, It appears there's a second tray that's locked, so perhaps in some regions or with certain distributors, the dual SIM version might be available. On the back of the device, we are going to discover various options. In some versions, it features a glass finish. However, in this particular case, I have the edition that comes with a wood finish. Regardless of the version, the device, they have stylish covers with interesting colors, collaborating with Pantone for nice styles. I have the wood edition, but there are other options like suede finishes, synthetic leather or glass. Choose your option, all with a stylish and interesting design. Motorola says the titanium hinge will be 4 times more durable than before, showing major improvement. Regarding how this hinge fits, it's important to know that it has sufficient rigidity to maintain the device in a semi-folded position. This is particularly true at intermediate angles. However, if the angle becomes too open or too closed, there may come a point when the device can't hold that position. It will eventually unfold or fold entirely. This device measures 7.19 millimeters thick when open and 15.69 millimeters when closed, weighing 199 grams. Inside, there's an ultra-thin glass, the typical copper for folding screens. The fold mark is well hidden, making it almost invisible when the device is on and barely noticeable to the touch. It's important to point out that having a mica on top can significantly increase the chances of staining the camera area. This means you'll need to frequently clean it to ensure your photos don't appear low contrast or muddy. However, the internal screen still requires the same delicate care that we have come to recognize in all screens. This careful treatment is crucial to maintain its quality and prevent any damage. If you want a folding screen, handle it with care, as even a fingernail can leave marks on it. Therefore, it shares the same implications as other foldable devices. The device comes equipped with an IP48 rating, which means it is water resistant. In theory, this means it could be submerged in water and would also have resistance to certain particles. While it may not be resistant to fine particles like dust, it is still durable enough to avoid easy damage. However, keep in mind that no manufacturer will honor the warranty if the device suffers water damage. Therefore, it's best to consider this resistance as a safeguard for accidental exposure rather than intentional immersion. Let's talk now about the external display, which is one of the most spectacular points of this device, not only for its size, which is already very attractive with 4 inches, but also has a high resolution of 1272 x 1080 pixels, reaching a density of 417 pixels per inch. So unlike other manufacturers who put a much simpler external display, Motorola bet on placing a tremendous external display as POLED technology with colors. It possesses an excellent saturation level along with an impressively high contrast, and it even reaches a peak brightness of 3000 nits. This means you can perfectly appreciate the contents even under direct sunlight. However, it's important to note that this peak brightness is achieved in specific areas when you're viewing HDR content, as indeed this screen lets us watch HDR content on YouTube, Instagram, and Netflix directly from the outside. It's a top-level screen, unlike most who put a great screen inside but a simpler one outside. Then, due to its convenient foldable format, you could easily just leave it behind. The internal screen is designed like an A-frame, allowing you to view your content as if you had a special stand or something similar. The external display, while having a lower brightness, is still quite comfortable to use. Although it lacks the option for extra dimming, it ultimately delivers excellent quality with a refresh rate of 165 Hz. Personally, I find this to be somewhat of an exaggeration because it might consume more battery than necessary. For me, the ideal would be to see an external display of maximum 120 Hz, but in this case, they go to the extreme and is at a very high level. Although, fortunately, if you have LTPO technology to lower that rate when it is showing static content, but the external display is very clear that it is a complete spectacle. The internal screen will indeed be of excellent quality. We are discussing a 7-inch diagonal screen with a 22:9 aspect ratio. Therefore, it is a device that is somewhat taller compared to traditional ones. Content because it's foldable. Its resolution is 2992 by 1224 pixels. Motorola calls it Super HD, reaching a density of 464 pixels per inch, so all content will be seen with a lot of sharpness and repeats formula width, very intense colors and very high contrasts. In this case, it has a mold technology, and its maximum peak brightness is 4500 nits, so it is even brighter than the external display, although I insist these peaks will be reached when you see HDR content. And as you realize, it supports HDR from YouTube, Instagram, Netflix, and the apps you want. So it is a screen that is at the level of what one would expect. It even supports Dolby Vision as another HDR protocol. As a result, every video or movie can now be watched with an incredibly high degree of impressive realism that truly stands out. Actually, it is a Pantone-validated display which guarantees excellent color accuracy. In this instance, you will find 3 distinct color profiles, depending on whether you prefer natural colors, slightly more intense ones, or vivid colors. Personally, I believe that the vivid color setting is the most impressive. Additionally, there is a manual color temperature adjustment option available, which functions effectively for this internal display. If we're to find more dimming options, the accessibility options to further lower the brightness of the screen and have a comfortable visualization. Remember that it is also complemented by the dark mode, eye protection mode, and the like. Interestingly, in this case, also brings another option that allows you to increase the resolution of the videos you are playing to take advantage of the additional resolution that has the screen, although it will consume more battery. And finally, it features a 165 Hz refresh rate, which I mentioned earlier. It's a bit exaggerated in my opinion, but it's a way to stand out from competing devices by offering a higher rate. Thus, both screens offer something excellent. As for the sound, there are 2 speakers for stereo support, both quite powerful. The main speaker is at the bottom, while the secondary one is in the earpiece area for calls, yet it still offers excellent quality. Both provide strong bass frequencies, delivering great sound with ample volume. Additionally, through software, if you have Dolby Atmos, spatial audio capabilities, various sound profiles, and a 10-band equalizer available for use with the speakers, then it offers many great options to enhance your music, even in Dolby Atmos custom setting. It adds a surround virtualizer to boost audio amplitude, mainly with headphones, and a volume leveler for consistent sound intensity, perfect for movies. Let's listen to a small test of these speakers, although remember that it is not the same to listen to it live. This device also features an option known as multitasking volume, which lets us adjust the volume for each application individually. This could be particularly useful, for example, if you want to listen to some content while playing a game. It's an option that some manufacturers have recently started integrating, and I personally find it extremely useful. However, keep in mind that it doesn't have a headphone jack, so to enjoy zero latency, you will need to use an adapter or opt for USB-C headphones. However, if your main focus is music, you can enjoy very high-resolution codecs like LDAC, aptX, Adaptive aptX, and LHTC in version 3.4. This ensures it is fully compatible with various styles of high-resolution wireless headphones. Regarding microphones, there is a great number available, 2 on the top, 1 on the side, and 2 on the bottom. Although not all of these are utilized for recording audio, the microphones not only cancel noise, but some also focus on reducing it. It also features a Crystal Talk AI mode, which applies noise cancellation to your calls. You are supposed to be able to modify it via the quick settings panel. However, it seems you can only make changes from the full settings menu. Now, let's go ahead and listen to a test of these microphones.
Esta es una prueba de audio grabada con los micrófonos del Motorola Razr 60 Ultra.
The microphones have good pickup, but for the price, I think we could expect clearer sound. Let's see how it performs in a noisy setting. It seems that we do not find severe distortions, although the gain adjustment can be a little slow. At times the audio seems to lose a bit of resolution when there are abrupt changes in volume, but overall I think it performs. Finally, it has a vibration motor on the X-axis with intensity adjustment for a premium experience that complements perfectly well in this price range. The front camera boasts 50 megapixels and features an f2.0 aperture with a fixed focus. It is strategically positioned at the top center of the internal display. As with every Motorola device, you can swiftly activate the camera by rotating the phone twice, ensuring it functions seamlessly in any situation. Whether your phone is locked, unlocked, with the screen open or closed, it works perfectly. It's important to note that in this instance, we will achieve an optimal speed suited for this kind of photography. There are 2 amplitude settings available, and right here we have the beauty mode. This mode features an intelligent adjustment with just a single parameter, or you can choose to move parameter by parameter, adjusting the intensity of each element individually, especially if you want to achieve a very artificial look. Additionally, there's a list of special color filters available here, and at the top, you'll find another button. This button lets us choose between various styles like the natural style or a Motorola Special with more saturation, choose your color, all photos are in natural style. Here, we find quick access to the timer, very useful for taking pictures more comfortably, and as you see, the palm gesture is also enabled by default, even during video recording. You can also use this gesture, something that other manufacturers do not offer. In addition to this, it has automatic smile detection, or tap anywhere to take the picture. So, I think in all cases, they'll behave quite well. Additionally, due to the fact that it's a foldable, keep in mind that you have these unique capabilities at your disposal. Notice how the device is able to adjust its interface, allowing you to position it in this manner, and once more in this way you can effortlessly capture your photos. However, don't forget that you also have the option to use the external display, making it easy to take selfies in this manner, or alternatively, you could also set it up as a sort of compact stand. In this manner, you could also have the opportunity to enjoy pictures of very good quality, using the main camera, but when in selfie mode, you also have the option to use the ultra-wide setting. The internal front camera seems to me to be unusually good. I commented because generally, the front camera of the Folding is poor, but here we find great detail and color. Despite fixed focus, it creates a nice natural blur due to its f1.9 aperture and has a slightly wider 2.1mm angle, allowing for high-quality photos. It's perfect for framing landscapes or taking selfies. And with the arm fully stretched out, notice how it still maintains a very good level of detail. unlike many other devices that do not have such a well-optimized focus. However, when it comes to backlit scenes, it's not going to perform as well. Take a look, this is the preview and this is the result. It appears a bit unusual in terms of coloration, but now check out the result we would achieve when taking selfies using the external screen and along with the main photography system. It certainly elevates the level of detail to an even higher standard. I believe the front camera was already impressive, but capturing selfies using the external system is even superior. Additionally, consider that you can also utilize the ultra-wide camera for capturing very wide pictures, and it still maintains excellent quality even in backlit scenes. Notice how the photo is of exceptional quality, and remember that with this system you could have autofocus, allowing you to zoom in on an object. For portrait photography, this would be the result with the front camera. The bokeh effect is nice, but it fails to keep the subjects in focus. On the other hand, if you use the main camera, it keeps this same intensity of the bokeh effect, and also it aims to focus better on objects, so I suggest using this camera at night. The front camera also performs well. However, reflections are slightly exaggerated due to the flexible glass instead of traditional glass. Still, it handles backlit night scenes effectively, and this is what night portrait photography would actually look like. I must insist that it struggles a bit to avoid reflections, but notice again that with the main camera we achieve a level of detail that is exceptionally good at night. Even in scenes that are backlit at night, it is also going to perform well. Additionally, with the ultra-wide camera, we find a very good performance in various types of scenarios, so when it comes to selfies, there is absolutely nothing to worry about as this device is truly excellent. Take a closer look at night portrait photography when utilizing the rear camera. The outcome is incredibly impressive with its detail level, beautiful bokeh effect in the background, and precise edge detection. On the back, there's an ultra-wide 12mm camera with a 50-megapixel sensor. The lens has an f2.0 aperture, and it also has autofocus, so it's good for macro photography. Then the other camera will be 22mm with f1.8 aperture, autofocus, and optical stabilization, in this case using a 50-megapixel sensor, which, by the way, is validated by Pantone to have more accurate colors and skin tones, and also offers cropping within the sensor to give you a 44mm perspective with photos of just over 12 megapixels. Notice again in this case how it has good enough sharpness without being anything ultra spectacular. If we hold down the shutter, it is an infinite burst, albeit a bit slow. Here there is a special button that allows us to take pictures on the move. Therefore, it will be quite interesting to utilize that particular mode during special occasions as well. In this specific instance, please note that there is a slight delay in the picture. We attempted to capture the number 3, and the picture was actually taken just a little bit later. However, this is nothing out of the ordinary or unusual. Regarding the burst, it takes more than half a second to start, and as I anticipated, there is a lot of space between one photo and another, so it is not so useful. As we saw in the front camera, here we have the 2 color renditions we can use, and in this button we are going to find a bit more options, such as access to the timer. Again, we see some color filters available, and if we tap on the screen, we can adjust the exposure and focus. For more settings, enter Pro mode for focus, white balance, and shutter speed adjustments up to 32 seconds, reaching 3200. Exposure compensation, allowing us to capture photos in RAW format and also in a combination of JPG and RAW. Being a foldable device, it offers various ways to utilize the external display. For instance, observe how there's a button here that will trigger an animation when it detects a face, aiming to capture attention or encourage the person you're photographing to smile. If you press again, you will notice that it will change to display a preview. This allows the other person to see how they will appear in the picture, giving them an idea of their appearance. It is indeed a very useful tool. Additionally, take note that it will also adapt the interface, allowing you to take pictures while the device remains completely static. The interface is designed to respond to these folds, enhancing the user experience. The device also includes a feature known as photo booth mode. In the true style of these types of products that we often encounter in various locations, it is equipped with a timer function, so let's give it a try. You can see how it displays a grid here. We're going to take a picture and wait. Then, it will automatically capture the next one without requiring any further pressing. Let's proceed with another one, and that's going to be a total of 4 pictures that the device will capture. After capturing these images, they are automatically combined, allowing you to share them directly. This tool is simple, yet it might appeal to certain individuals. Additionally, it's important to note that the device flawlessly recognizes QR codes without any complications. Moreover, concerning documents, it's worth noting that in this case, it is primarily from the interface. It does not have the automatic detection, but you can enter the scanner mode, and in this case, it comes in collaboration with Adobe Scan, so it will offer us a very good recognition. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow us to use the ultra-wide camera, which I personally would prefer for its convenience. However, notice how the detection is immediate, offering different tools. Some of these tools work exclusively when you open Adobe Scan, but they are seamlessly connected. This allows you to add various paths with ease, all thanks to the automatic detection. Once you are finished, you can press Save to complete the process, and it will be exported as a PDF document, all seamlessly integrated into the camera app. It's an advanced scanner, and the camera experience feels well supported by software. Let's see the results. The ultra-wide camera is extremely wide with a 12mm focal length, among the widest in the industry, and it's impressive on a foldable. Obviously, it has the potential to generate some minor distortions and chromatic aberration around the edges. However, this isn't particularly serious given the incredible range it offers. It's important to note that it maintains a very good level of detail, which is quite uncommon for ultra-wide cameras found in smartphones. The main camera, as expected, also provides an excellent level of detail. However, it displays colors that are just a bit warmer compared to the ultra-wide camera. I really wish they would work on optimizing that aspect. Notice that the device lets us take photos at 45mm, meaning a 2x digital zoom, while keeping excellent optical detail. For example, let's check other results. With 2x zoom, the dynamic range wasn't as good, as some areas appear overexposed. However, it maintains the expected level of detail. Now with the 5x zoom, I believe it still holds up well. Next, you're looking at the 10x zoom, which I think is the maximum acceptable. The device still allows up to 20x, resulting in a very forced look. Even at maximum zoom 30x, it looks, I insist, very forced. But if instead of wanting to get too close you want to zoom out, I already anticipated you that the ultra-wide camera is really very wide. But remember that you can also use the panoramic mode, which in this case only allows us to use the main camera, but fortunately maintains a good level of detail, although it does not have such a high dynamic range. For nights, the camera performs really very well, on par with what one would expect in such an expensive device. The ultra-wide camera exposes the brighter areas perfectly without sacrificing the darker areas. The main camera maintains the same performance controlling. It handles noise perfectly while keeping good contrast. Even with some zoom, it maintains excellent detail, balance of light and shadow, and effective noise control. If there is no lighting present in the frame, you will notice that the result remains quite good. When you use the night mode, I believe it enhances the shadows better. And with the main camera, we also observe a good result. However, in the darker areas, there appear to be some strange lines that are not removed even if you use the night mode. This aspect could certainly improve, but overall the pictures still come out with good quality. In backlit scenes, it's important to note that the preview is optimized, and with the ultra-wide camera, we observe a good outcome. Although it does reveal a bit more chromatic aberration, this is natural due to the backlit areas. However, when focusing on the essence of the photograph, I find the result to be positive. With the main camera, you'll notice that the shadows become even more pronounced, which gives a feeling of greater contrast. However, in general, the photo still retains a decent quality even when using the 2x zoom setting. In this situation, it managed to perform well against the backlight, maintaining good performance overall. The device additionally offers a high-resolution mode, allowing you to capture images using the sensor's full resolution. While the level of detail is not excessively exaggerated, it is certainly a positive feature. In fact, you can also take these high-resolution photos with the ultra-wide camera, which is useful if you plan to crop them later. For macro photography, the natural and intense blur effect that is generated for the background combined with the good level of detail in the foreground performs very well. By applying a bit of digital zoom, you can bring these pictures closer. The device also lets us use the camera for action shots. The ultra-wide works as a macro camera, allowing you to get even closer to small objects. However, the focus might lack uniformity in action-packed scenes. In well-lit environments, you won't notice sweeping effects or similar issues. There might be instances where the exposure isn't perfectly balanced, but generally, even with a bit of digital zoom, you'll observe good stability in action shots. In portrait photography, results can be good depending on your settings. Results may vary, but you're fine here. Examining the picture with the 24mm option, it appears quite good, offering a proper bokeh effect and decent edge detection, though not flawless. Some challenging areas might go undetected. However, I appreciate that it also allows us to capture 35mm photos, providing a more professional perspective, and even 50mm shots while keeping a good level of detail. For portrait photos, the result is attractive and the bokeh effect is decent. Despite lacking a telephoto lens, it performs well. For video recording, this device will support up to 4K to 30 frames with the main camera or 4K 60 frames per second with either camera. It can record with Dolby Vision, which is a feature important. Additionally, you have the horizon lock here, and lastly, the resolution selector. Plus a few more tools. You might also choose to apply a filter to your video recording. However, it's important to note that doing so will result in a decrease in the video's resolution. This means that the quality of the video may not be as high as it would be without the filter. Interestingly, those settings vanish entirely, making the behavior somewhat odd. As you begin recording the video, take note that you can switch between the cameras. There's a handy ring located around here, a button to pause and resume your recording, and another button to take pictures. There's also another button to turn on the flashlight without needing to stop your video recording. Finally, there's a button that will display the preview on the external display, which will have the same functionality for photographs, meaning it can show expressions to call attention. Now, the device can be used to draw attention or display a preview of the person being recorded. What you are unable to do is switch to the front camera without stopping the video recording first, which means you're somewhat more restricted in this aspect. However, similar to what we observed in photo mode, you also have the capability to utilize the device in a semi-folded format, allowing you to take advantage of various other positions. And actually, on devices with this kind of design, it is often encouraged that you manipulate the cell phone in this manner to record and hold the device with greater stability. Actually, here too, it has a type of pad, so you don't have to touch the slider directly. With this pad, you can easily adjust various things such as zoom. However, keep in mind that it lacks a professional video mode and it only works for photo. Let's see the result with the ultra-wide camera. I think it's fine with a little less contrast, and I would like one little more chromatic aberration in some areas, but I think it manages to regulate it in a good way. The recording appears with high quality and great detail. Switching to the main camera, we observe a bit more contrast and slightly more accurate tones, warm tones. In general, there is a better quality with this camera, although sometimes we could say that it would even have a little more contrast than it should, but it all depends on the environment in which you are recording. For backlit scenes, note that the ultra-wide camera performs well, although again with a bit lower contrast than usual and perhaps colors that are not as accurate, but fortunately it performs well despite detecting. It neither detects faces nor fails to detect them, and there are no abrupt changes in the exposure levels. When switching to the main camera, you'll notice that the colors become slightly more saturated. However, it still performs well in balancing lights and shadows. Even when you apply a bit of digital zoom, it maintains the same quality experience. Moreover, it has the capability to record in Dolby Vision, and viewing this on a compatible monitor is absolutely spectacular. It records exceptionally well in backlit conditions using this Dolby Atmos mode. Even with the ultra-wide camera, it already provides a good level of contrast and vibrant color, also with the main camera. It records incredibly well in these backlit environments with Dolby Vision. It's truly spectacular, trust me, even though you're watching a video that has been converted to SDR, but on compatible monitors, it's truly spectacular. Even with 2x zoom, we still see a good performance. At night, I would also recommend recording with Dolby because it will look pretty good, although there are specific moments where it reveals a little more noise, but overall it maintains a very good experience. Although with the ultra-wide camera, the most illuminated areas sometimes aren't exposed correctly, which can create a gelatinous effect because of focus confusion at times, but that's in areas without many well-defined objects. In its lines, the primary camera significantly enhances video recording capabilities. This is especially evident in areas where lines aren't clearly defined. It maintains focus effectively and manages noise exceptionally well. Additionally, it's important to mention that it regulates settings efficiently. The brightness of the light sources that are present within the frame, and when you move to the darker areas, it does not perform well in controlling noise. Controls noise fairly well, though in these settings it seems. The primary challenges involve the appearance of unusual lines, which we also noticed in the photograph. To achieve a satisfactory outcome, it's essential to have a light source. In particularly dark scenes, the presence of a light source becomes crucial to obtaining a good result. Without adequate lighting, the results may not meet expectations, so ensuring proper illumination is key to resolving these issues and achieving the desired quality in your photographs. In the dark, the result might be unpleasant, but generally it records well. During the night, the stabilization is notably positive, particularly with the ultra-wide camera. It's worth noting that when walking it performs quite well, and even while running it seems to maintain the movements adequately. However, in scenes with excessive action, you might notice some abrupt movements with the main camera. Additionally, it stabilizes effectively when walking. As an interesting note, it tends to have distracting reflections from sunlight, so it's important to be cautious. With that, but it records well while walking. However, if you're running, the main camera struggles due to natural proximity issues. It also comes with a horizon lock function, which will definitely be very helpful for scenes that involve a lot more action. You'll notice that those turns that were visible earlier are no longer noticeable. This feature will be quite beneficial for scenes that involve higher speeds. However, it cannot be in K. Interestingly, it also allows you to record a scene vertically using horizon lock, even if your device is not positioned vertically, which can be quite useful. It's quite appealing, or you have the option to record horizontally while holding the device vertically. So ultimately, you have the choice of what you prefer, but it can certainly enhance scenes by providing more stabilization. However, it might also create an unusual sensation because of the horizontal movements being adjusted vertically. Nonetheless, it's nice to see this feature included, as it's not commonly found in other devices. When managing zoom, observe that if you can smoothly zoom in, you'll notice significant changes between the ultra-wide and the prime lens, largely due to the enhanced contrast. In this scenario, the maximum zoom is 6 times, and it appears to maintain good image quality, especially given that it's digital. Additionally, it keeps good stabilization, indicating that the zoom functions well. However, since it lacks a telephoto camera, capturing highly detailed images from very long distances isn't possible. The focus is also of good quality. Remember, the ultra-wide camera has autofocus, allowing close macro scenes. It responds well to both fast and slow movements, behaving perfectly. If you switch to the main camera again, you will notice that the color is more intense and with more contrast, but speaking specifically about the focus, it also behaves well both. In fast movements and in more subtle movements, as long as you have good lighting, because we already saw that at night the ultra-wide camera can get a little more confused. The slow motion feature is really impressive because it allows you to record in 4K at 120 frames per second, providing excellent image quality with detailed slow motion. Additionally, you can increase the frame rate to 240 frames per second by reducing the resolution to Full HD. However, please avoid attempting these shots at home as they can easily go wrong. This device also supports fast motion with post-recording stabilization, so it can generate a somewhat weird jello effect, but it can go from 4x, useful for people movements, and although you can record it in 4K and it could even go up to 8K, the result actually looks like it's Full HD. In truth, the image quality is not very good when there's a lot of movement, probably because of the weird stabilization it applies. However, when the device is placed on a stable base, you might achieve a superior image quality, yet it limits you to a maximum of 32x, which means there's not a lot of thrill in the outcome. The front camera also captures video with impressive image quality. From the picture, we could already see that it is quite appealing to find such good quality from the front camera. However, when backlit, it can sometimes blur the image slightly more because of the flexible glass covering it. This glass can occasionally be a bit more challenging to keep clean. Therefore, it's not highly recommended for recording in backlit situations with high contrast, but under favorable conditions, I believe the image quality appears excellent and offers good stabilization. However, now take a look at the quality of the image with the rear system. Although it does record by default, you can see the difference in the details. In Full HD, so you can see the result is very wide. When you switch to the main one, it still maintains good quality. Now, take a look at how it appears in 4K. The reality is that the recording quality is exceptionally good for videos like this, whether it's a selfie or a blog type. It's going to be truly spectacular. This is not only due to the excellent image quality it offers, which creates a wonderfully nice blur effect, but also because you have the option to use the ultra-wide camera to capture a broader scenery, far wider. As for the backlight handling, he knows that it does a good enough job, though not completely spectacular. This was a super extreme backlight situation, so is complex. But even with the ultra-wide camera, it maintains the same performance level. Honestly, I believe it's a great option for recording vlogs or similar content. However, be aware that the microphones are aligned to one side, so when recording with the ultra-wide camera, you'll notice the sound comes from just one side. If you happen to be using the rear system, you might observe that the sound is emanating solely from one particular side. Listen to an example.
Entonces, perfectamente puedes mostrar cosas, ya sea que estés grabando con la cámara ultra wide o también con la cámara principal, sigues conservando estas capacidades. Muy bien.
To use it for recording blogs, it's absolutely necessary to use an external microphone to ensure you have high quality audio or to enhance it later in post-production. The main advantage is that it features autofocus, allowing you to present something to the audience and the device will automatically focus on it seamlessly, without any issues. This applies to both the ultra-wide camera and the main camera, meaning it performs excellently at night. Here is the result with the front camera. You'll notice it maintains a good quality. However, like nearly all devices, it does struggle somewhat to keep the video clean, especially when there is a significant amount of movement involved. Every time you attempt to eliminate the noise, you'll likely notice a somewhat unusual vibration effect occurring. Although the image quality I think is more or less adequate in the high end, at night is always a very complicated scenario, and considering that it is the front camera, I think we can accept it. But note how much the image improves when you record with the rear system, although again, in this case I recorded in Full HD because that was the default format, but the image improves a lot. Although in this case it is very noticeable that when switching to the ultra-wide camera, the image loses a lot of detail, so it will be appropriate to record with the main camera, and I insist that the image quality is really very good with the front camera. This device also allows us to record in fast camera mode with the same configuration that we have already seen and good stabilization, so it is a positive point. If you want to record slow motion, you can't do it with the front camera, but you can use the rear system with the device folded. If you can access this slow motion mode so you see more or less, here is the result in full HD, although at times it seems to give jumps between a frame and another a little strange. So it will not be a specialist in this. Finally, it also integrates dual recording mode for you to show both the front camera and the rear camera. See in this example how you can move the frame to the position you desire. Additionally, we will observe that you have the ability to switch between the two cameras. Also take note that it allows us to zoom in slightly. However, since we are utilizing the ultra-wide camera, the zoom is quite limited and stabilization is turned off, though autofocus remains active. If you wish to achieve a broader zoom range, it's advisable to start recording with the main camera. However, since it lacks stabilization, the video might appear a bit unusual. Additionally, we will find the split screen mode, allowing you to display both cameras at the same size. However, I must emphasize that the lack of stabilization complicates the video result, making it more challenging to achieve a smooth output. Regarding the software, this device includes Android 15 along with Hello UI, which is Motorola's customization layer. This layer typically doesn't add a lot of options or modify the aesthetic significantly, although it does introduce its own typography, which I believe stands out quite well. The manufacturer guarantees 3 years of software updates and 4 years of security patches. In this aspect, it falls quite short, especially given its very high price, which makes it completely disappointing. When it comes to customization, it provides the basic Android tools, including the color palette extractor, which is based on the wallpaper. In this area, you'll see that the lock screen lacks extensive customization options. There is a small theme center available, but it doesn't allow for a lot of changes. It mainly adjusts the background, the color palette, and perhaps a few icon shapes. Overall, the customization is somewhat limited to these features. Actually, you can manually choose the shape you prefer for your home screen icons as well as for the quick settings. On the lock screen, I mentioned that you have the option to show the list of notifications, or alternatively, you can choose to display just a small capsule or little circles, each with individual notifications. Additionally, you can completely customize the clock to match your personal preference. In certain cases, it comes with a small list of widgets, although none of them are customizable. And ultimately, you have the ability to alter the shortcuts located in the corners should you desire to activate such a feature for the home screen. Pay attention because we will encounter additional options such as the ability to adjust the typography. Moreover, we have the choice to decide whether we prefer an app drawer or if we want all applications to be displayed on the main screen. Furthermore, we have the option to choose the size of the icons in case we wish to make adjustments. Something that is different, and we even have the option to choose if we prefer the apps not to display in-text labels at all. The control center is also customizable. By default, it comes with this classic style that shows the notifications combined with the controls. But I find the modern style much more attractive because it is divided into 2 pages, the notes and the controls. And the controls with lots and lots of options around here with a single tap. By default, it doesn't show the labels, so it can be a little tricky the first few times to learn the meaning of the symbols, but fortunately, it will allow you to display the text labels and still look cleanly formatted. The device has a feature called Interactive Display that at the same time merges with Always On Display to show you at all times the time and a little more. When you need information, keep in mind that when you lift the device, the screen will light up and can show various things. You have the ability to fully configure its behavior according to your preferences. However, it seems that there aren't a lot of customization options available for the cover. As a result, the clock style will be fully synced with the style you have set in the lock screen settings of your external display. Note there are characters you can use to enjoy, with several options available, some more customizable than others, but definitely here. Motorola aimed to attract attention with these possibilities, and some characters can even interact with them. Motorola Elements offer great lock screen customization tools with Always On Display. Notice how, for example, it even changes color while you are picking it up at the same time. The device has a sidebar for quick app access. In the windowed format, please note that in this particular case, you are able to open up to a maximum of 5 applications simultaneously in this format, which offers a great deal of versatility. Keep in mind that YouTube is also compatible with these floating applications, so you can easily achieve highly advanced multitasking. In this scenario, all applications will be compatible, providing an excellent demonstration of multitasking capabilities. Additionally, please be aware that you can also minimize the apps, allowing them to be placed in a floating bubble format. This way you can easily restore them with just a single tap whenever you need. And furthermore, it's possible to open these apps in a split screen mode. This can be done simply by swiping either up or down. Moreover, it's important to mention that you have the option to assign a separate space to each app, ensuring they remain connected in the recent apps list. This feature enhances your ability to multitask efficiently. And the one-handed mode will just scroll half of the screen, which I personally don't prefer. Luckily, the device lets you take screenshots by placing 3 fingers on it. Additionally, remember that you can take scrolling screenshots to capture more content than what the device typically shows on a single screen. It features a very good editor for these screenshots. It's important to note that it allows us to apply cropping exactly as we desire, or even blur certain areas using pixels. Additionally, we can configure what we want to occur when pressing the power button. It's worth mentioning that we can set up the double press, which by default opens the camera. However, it doesn't allow us to map this action to another application or anything similar. Also, by pressing and holding the button, we can specify if we want the assistant to activate Google settings or if we want Moto AI to operate, which we'll discuss shortly. We can additionally choose the power menu or alternatively decide that it performs no action at all. The Moto AI button can also be customized for a long press or a double press depending on the specific action you wish to carry out. Moreover, something I really appreciate is that you have the option to swipe on the fingerprint reader to enable another function. For instance, in this scenario, you can use it to scroll through the settings. It could be quick or even possible to run the zoom feature within Google Maps. However, doing so might cause you to lose some utility in other applications within the system. If the device has the screen off, it also allows you to use the volume buttons to be able to change songs. And remember that Motorola also adds a great set of gestures, such as quick launch by double tapping on the back of the cell phone. Here you can configure which application or which tool you want to gesture. For instance, you could opt to take a screenshot by double tapping the back. However, notice that it might not work immediately, it just requires a bit of a learning curve. But once you've gotten the hang of it and learned the gestures, you can perform them more easily, and they indeed do work effectively. And additionally, it includes the classic Motorola gesture for activating the flashlight. You just shake the phone twice to turn it on. Moreover, the screen lights up when you pick up the phone. You can also put the phone face down to mute incoming calls and perform similar actions. Whether there's an incoming call, an alarm, or something like that, if your phone is face up with the external screen, you can simply wave your hand over it to stop the ringing. As always, Motorola includes several gestures. They add the Hello You app, offering new features and technical support, plus Moto Unplugged to disconnect from digital life. It will silence unwanted notifications and can even personalize your user interface differently. With your session logged in, you'll have more tools to simply customize which applications are allowed and monitored when you start. You just need to give it the permissions the first time, although I would like this process to come already pre-configured because it can get complicated for some users. But after giving all this in authorizations, you have the option to choose the duration you want for the session, and once you do that, the device becomes extremely simplified. It completely locks you out, ensuring no distractions. Everything so you won't get distracted or disconnect even a little from the digital world. It can emerge at any moment with your password. So it also requires some level of control itself. And interestingly, Motorola now integrates its own Notes app. This app will also include other artificial intelligence tools that I will demonstrate to you later. However, as you can see, Motorola's operating system, while still quite clean, has gradually been incorporating new options to distinguish itself a bit more compared to other alternatives that feature. Using pure Android, when it comes to the external screen, being a foldable device, it requires a particular focus to thoroughly discuss all of its functions and capabilities. Remember that in this case, it comes with a lock screen that you can customize, although curiously, the settings application is one of the few applications that you cannot run from the external screen. It seems to me something very strange, but well, here we will be able to select different themes that I already showed you a moment ago to customize your experience on the external screen, but we can also customize the main screen. Regarding the shortcuts it presents, and similarly, you can choose various themes with different mascots or decorative items, along with customizing the fonts and colors. On the outer screen, you will discover various panels. Please note that it enables you to reorder or remove any panels you do not desire. Additionally, you have the option to add other panels if you wish. One of these panels allows you to incorporate widgets that you would typically only be able to add to the home screen. Furthermore, you can also stay updated with the latest news or check the stock market information. So here, besides the main screen, if you slide to the sides, you'll gain access to a variety of panels. These panels display numerous capabilities, including some that allow for quick execution of tools like the timer or the stopwatch. Additionally, in other cases, you can also view information such as the current weather. In addition to that, from this screen, as I mentioned earlier, you have the ability to access any application using the external screen. Take note that here you will find various settings that determine how it will function. When a call arrives or what it does when you shut the phone, you have the option to choose the action you want to happen when you close the phone in certain applications. For instance, I can decide that when I'm watching YouTube, it resumes either automatically or manually. Let's choose automatic to observe how it behaves. So, if we're watching a YouTube video, closing the phone resumes it right away. Interestingly, YouTube acts oddly because it plays the video without showing it. The operation isn't optimal, but if you open it on an external screen, it displays perfectly. That's one behavior. Let's take a moment to explore how we might manually select a transition in this context. If you're watching the video or engaging in any other activity, you'll notice that by default, it presents us with this option. However, you can scroll to resume the application. It's worth mentioning that it appears to experience occasional restarts and isn't fully optimized at 100%. Therefore, I believe Motorola should focus on enhancing the user experience. Nonetheless, you have the ability to choose the behavior individually here. The same situation could occur, for instance, with WhatsApp. If all of a sudden you decide to close your phone and the application resumes, you have the option to scroll and that's it. Here you have the keyboard ready for use, or alternatively, you can choose to turn off the phone entirely. It entirely depends on the specific settings that you choose individually for each application. Additionally, you also have the desktop screen that lets you know you can have the cell phone. Partially folded if you prefer a carousel of images. Here, you can choose your photo gallery to use as decoration. Could be intriguing and offers options like dimming images to prevent quick battery drain. Or additionally, if you're playing a song, it will display the cover art of that specific album. And various interaction gestures that will allow the device to be enabled immediately or pause when. When you zoom out, there are numerous tools available to fully leverage the device in these formats. Similarly, when it's in the open format for the music player, be aware that you have a variety of different styles to choose from. In this particular instance, it will synchronize seamlessly with any music player. For example, here I chose Spotify, and you can clearly see that the controls appear there perfectly. This includes these animations that also are nice when using your cell phone. Regarding Flex Mode app adaptation, I was already observing that the camera does adapt perfectly by adjusting its interface. Curiously, the photo application, which is essentially the gallery it includes, does not adjust overall. This is because it depends heavily on numerous Google applications for system tools. None of these will adjust, nor are there tools available to force them to do so. For instance, YouTube will adjust by displaying controls at the bottom and the viewing area at the top. However, it is one of the few applications where you can truly take advantage of this mode. In this context, Flex is somewhat limited, yet it permits us to utilize any app from the external screen. Essentially, this means we can position the phone in this format and that's all. By doing so, we could suggest that it apps to benefit from the stand format. Regarding video call apps, it's important to note that WhatsApp regrettably does not adapt. Would come quite well, but it is curious that in WhatsApp, we do not see this behavior that in other foldable. Yes, it does get to adapt, however in Zoom and Google Meet, if you are going to. Notice that the interface adapts, although in Microsoft Teams is also not able to do that. So the truth, I think there is not so much optimization to take advantage of the fact that it is a foldable device. In that regard, it still has quite a bit more work to accomplish and improvements to make. Regarding artificial intelligence functions, I remind you that Motorola includes a specific application called Moto AI, where it has a lot of options that I tell you about. In depth, in a video linked in the description, it has many image generation tools, a tool to create playlists with text commands, and functions to record, transcribe, and save important info in AI memory for future use. Another section is dedicated to simply chatting with this AI assistant, which is neither Gemini nor GPT chat. Finally, the function I missed is a summary of your notifications. I insist the description has a link to a detailed explanation of these functions. Regarding security, the device incorporates a side fingerprint reader outside the screen that supports up to 5 records. Unlocking is fast and effective. It works well. There is nothing to complain about in this aspect. The device also incorporates facial recognition, although it is in 2 dimensions, but at least it detects whether you wear glasses or not to request another registration. Moreover, it offers an additional automatic lock feature that you can choose to activate when you exit your trusted zones, ensuring the device locks once more. Within the comprehensive Moto Secure suite, you'll also discover additional options like the Secure Folder. This allows you to safeguard applications and files with a pattern that can be distinct from your lock screen, which makes it quite effective. Additionally, we discovered the app blocking feature that lets you select which specific apps need to request a second verification before proceeding. Allow access useful if you lend your phone. There's also a network protection option that warns on public Wi-Fi and another to guard against online scams. If you visit a deceptive site, the device might detect it and warn you, though it's not 100% accurate. If you use a PIN to unlock your screen, it also offers an option to display the numbers in a random order. This prevents someone from easily learning your PIN. Additionally, it has a feature called Family Space, which allows you to add all the members of your family. This app lets you track the location in real time. If authorized, it also allows you to set up user profiles to control which apps kids can use. To exit, they need a password, and you can set usage time limits. The first time you use it, you have to activate a lot of permissions, and I do not like that because it can complicate the process a bit. For certain users, this feature truly excels. It provides an extremely useful method to lend your phone with minimal risk of children accessing other sections. While it doesn't directly integrate with any antivirus, it does include Lenovo's ThinkShield technology, now adapted for mobile devices to safeguard against attacks. This protection is implemented at the chip level, which is quite effective. Additionally, it comes with a full range of Google options, offering comprehensive security and functionality, which are present in Android devices such as Google Play Protect, Extended Unlock, Find My Device function, and more that I tell you in another video that I leave you in the description if you want to know absolutely everything about this cell phone. The battery is 4,700 mAh. This is a battery that is practically at the same level as traditional format devices, and curiously in my test it did quite well. In the foreground drain test, it was practically at the same level as other devices with 5,000 mAh batteries. And therefore, there's really nothing to fear in that aspect. During the background test, it increased slightly more than an hour. This indicates to me that it effectively manages the applications running in the background, preventing the cell phone from discharging too quickly. In fact, the device actually includes a special option for managing background applications. This feature is turned off by default. I would suggest you keep it that way for optimal performance. However, if you prefer more specific control, you can choose which applications are allowed to always run in the background and which ones you want to restrict. You can also decide which apps to keep under this intelligent management system. In my test playing YouTube videos with the screen brightness at 50%, it reached 19 hours with 14 minutes. That is more than what other devices reach with batteries of 5,000 mAh, so the battery has really behaved very well. So it is not a cell phone that will discharge so easily. But anyway, it helps to have the traditional everyday saving mode, and you also have the ultra saving mode that will restrict many more things on the cell phone. To keep it from discharging quickly, a 68-watt charger is included in the box for some regions. I think in some countries the charger isn't included, so be aware of that. But in Mexico, it is included. As shown in the graph, during the initial charging phase, it hits a high power level. In 15 minutes, it reached 33% battery, and in 30 minutes, it got to 56%, which is quite good. The full charge was complete in 61 minutes. We can say that it is a good charging power without becoming something spectacular. Interestingly, the device allows us to activate a fast charge, but it actually gets slower. In 15 minutes, reached 29%. In 30 minutes, it reached 52%, and a full charge took 1 hour and 12 minutes. So avoid using fast charging. If you want the charge to be faster, keep in mind it includes wireless charging, as all high-end devices should, ensuring great practicality. It is also possible to place it on some base, and even has reverse wireless charging to charge some accessory on top of the back of this cell phone. When it comes to taking care of your battery, it also introduces smart charging, which learns your daily routine and charges more slowly, finishing the charge just as you wake up from sleep. Additionally, it features a charging lock that Motorola refers to as overcharge protection. In this version, it works effectively because in previous generations, the device needed to remain connected for several days before this option activated. Now, it is properly limited to 80%. You could additionally choose to disable fast charging if you want to take better care of your battery's lifespan. In this regard, there's absolutely nothing for you to be concerned about. The experience has actually been extremely good, providing you with peace of mind in terms of battery management. When it comes to connectivity, we will have access to 5G alongside Wi-Fi 7, as expected. Interestingly, even though I have a Wi-Fi 7 router, it displays the Wi-Fi 6 icon in this instance, but that's a minor detail. The drawback is the absence of a data blocking mode requiring extra caution. You cannot specify which applications should exclusively use Wi-Fi for internet access and avoid using your mobile data. And hopefully Motorola will add that at some point. For now, you should know that it has the advantage of integrating eSIM to add data plans with QR codes instead of buying physical SIM cards. And with this, you have more convenience. It also has Bluetooth 5.4 NFC, although it does not have FM radio, but it does have OTG to connect USB accessories. However, it will not allow us the screen projection by cable, which is a disadvantage, especially considering the price. We can project wirelessly, both in mirrored mode and in advanced mode, thanks to Smart Connect. This allows apps in windowed format or other interfaces Motorola suggests to optimize the device on larger screens. Connecting a wireless gamepad, mouse or keyboard can enhance your experience significantly. More advanced with a bigger screen. It is also capable of connecting to your car's display using Android Auto. Regarding sensors, it includes an accelerometer, geomagnetic field sensor, orientation sensor, gyroscope, light sensor, and pressure sensor. Additionally, the proximity sensor is physical, which makes it quite impressive in this regard. Motorola has been gradually improving its ecosystem, although using Google technologies, so it is not a closed ecosystem. In fact, it is quite open. For example, their Motobuds will be easily linked both to these Motorola cell phones and to cell phones of other brands that use Android. They have also recently launched their Moto Watch, although in that sense they have not had such an advanced development yet. Keep in mind that Motorola is included in the Lenovo family, which means it can connect to Lenovo laptops or tablets. Additionally, they currently offer the Moto Tag, which is compatible with Google's device finding network. This allows you to track your products or personal items. I believe it indeed comes with useful tools, but I must emphasize it relies on Google technologies. Motorola and Lenovo's proprietary technology, Smart Connect, helps connect to wireless displays and computers. Here are the device options for Smart Connect. For computers, download the installer file or get it from the Microsoft Store for convenience. Syncing with the computer is good because you can use the device on your computer or your phone's camera as a webcam. You can have a shared clipboard and many more features. Regardless of your computer's brand, you can install this tool to enhance your ecosystem. You can connect tablets too, even if they aren't Lenovo or Motorola. As you can see, screens also work with the Motorola Moto Watch. And here you can see some examples. With other tools, including the MetaQuest, you'll have the ability to connect and use your cell phone directly through this extended reality viewer. This means you can access your phone's features seamlessly while immersed in the virtual experience. So it is very interesting, the development that Motorola has done, so that despite not having such a large ecosystem of devices, their devices are able to interact very well with devices from other brands. Motorola bets everything to give confidence to Google, so it depends on the 100% of all services. As you can see, it comes with many pre-installed Google applications. It does not offer its own alternatives to Google. Control over home devices and cloud storage, everything is completely handed over to Google. Let's test the Motorola Razr 60 Ultra's performance. It features the Snapdragon 8 Elite, the most powerful today, with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a terabyte of storage. And it averaged 1.9 seconds to open apps, showing good performance. Now let's see how it handles the 16 gigabytes of RAM. That is truly a very common figure. And as I mentioned, it somehow justifies the high cost. This is because, generally speaking, other manufacturers tend to offer these versions with more RAM and additional storage at higher prices. Motorola opts for one configuration. I might have preferred a 256 gigabyte option with 12 gigabytes of RAM for a better price, but this is Motorola's choice. It still performs excellently with all these apps open, truly. The device maintains power consistently without any interruptions, and it never feels sluggish or anything similar, ensuring that the experience will be truly excellent in terms of performance. Observe, for instance, how it behaves when you're on a Facebook feed. As you swipe down, it only takes a few seconds for more content to load like it typically does. However, it doesn't freeze at any moment. The experience remains quite fluid. Now let's take a look at another application. Here you can also notice that the behavior is kept at a very good level. Just as I mentioned before, it takes a few typical seconds to load additional content as usual, and that's all there is to it. We are not going to notice at any moment that the device has frozen. Regarding the ability to handle these special effects, note that some are surprisingly complex. However, most process easily and without much trouble. Still, a few effects might pose more challenges. Overall, it performs well, though it's not a perfect 100% experience. Most effects work smoothly. By the way, the device includes special features to smartly launch apps, learning your habits to preload them before you typically use them, enhancing the device's efficiency. It also offers virtual alarm activated by AI. I added 4 more gigabytes, totaling 20 gigabytes. I find this unnecessary, but it's an available option. And note that it also brings a storage cleanup tool that I had already told you that it is a terabyte. In this case, it only says that when it detects fragmentation, it will try to optimize the phone. So it should be called defragmentation, not cleanup. But well, let's go here to check how is the storage used so you can see how it brings the statistics and the option to free up space. It connects with Google Files, but sadly, with just a single touch, it doesn't provide us with too much information. We need to navigate into the menu to choose the cleaning option, and here it presents us with several filters like unwanted files, large files, applications that we do not use and the like, but it is not as sophisticated a tool as we see in some other cell phones. Consider that it doesn't have a micro SD card slot, but with a terabyte of storage, I don't think you'll need more. For those more technical, see, the read speed here was 3,387 megabytes per second. In write, it reached a speed of 3,387.3 megabytes per second. Now, here is the RAM speed, which is certainly very high. However, let's proceed to a real-life test. We will be exporting a video in 4K resolution. As you're aware, in this particular situation, we're utilizing clips that have been carefully recorded using this specific device. In this high resolution, lasting 1 minute, took 19 seconds. It's very fast for video exporting. The power truly stands out, especially with vertical folding. Alright, let's dive into discussing the games now. It's important to point out that in this instance, there's a dedicated app specifically designed for exploring new content. However, you might notice that for some reason it takes a while for them to load. Keep in mind that these are pieces of content you can run without needing to install them on your phone. Additionally, within this application, you have the ability to manage all the games you've already installed, which are far more advanced. In the settings, you have the option to either activate or deactivate the game time feature, which grants you access to this kit. The toolbar featuring a floating button allows you to choose the color you wish to use. Additionally, you can decide if you want the text labels to be visible or not. Additionally, it provides the capability to configure screen recording specifically for gameplay sessions. You can achieve a maximum resolution of Full HD at 60 frames per second. Furthermore, you have the option to set either time or size limits for your recorded file. If you wish, you can also enable your front camera to appear within your gameplay. Don't forget, it also offers the feature to open the applications. It lets you block notifications or calls, but you can enable repeated calls for interruptions or add exceptions for contacts you want unblocked. You have the option to block quick gestures by using 3 fingers or shaking the phone, which helps in avoiding accidental activations. Additionally, there is a lock mode available that allows you to disable navigation gestures, ensuring you don't accidentally exit. This mode also locks the automatic brightness and supports Dolby Atmos audio enhancement. Now, let's launch a game so you can witness these tools in action. You'll notice that right over here, there is a small floating button. In this section, we find the Power Manager, which allows you to choose between turbo, balanced, or battery-saving modes. Additionally, you can check the consumption levels of the CPU, GPU, and RAM, as well as monitor the internal temperature of the processor. Moreover, you have the ability to manipulate the sound and brightness. Right here, you also have these switches for the locks that I mentioned just a moment ago. Additionally, there's another feature called acoustic lights, which might be quite useful when you're playing in silence. It can emit lights on the sides of the screen, but you need to specifically activate this feature. Honestly, it's a bit tedious because you have to choose which game you are running in order to fully enable these options. Then the device is already equipped with stereo sound, which is great. However, if you happen to be playing in silence, the screen's illumination can alert you if there's any sound coming from the left or right. Additionally, you have the option to enhance the screen sensitivity and even improve the latency of the Wi-Fi network. Moreover, in the Applications tab, you can add your favorite apps, allowing you to run them in this floating mode without having to exit your game. Additionally, we discovered a way to return to the main game screen to share this content, capture screenshots, record the screen, or rearrange the order of these tools. I believe it offers a decent amount, not the most advanced suite, yet sufficient to provide a good experience. Now let's proceed directly to the Call of Duty tests. By default, the graphic quality is set to very high. At the maximum rate, we can achieve the highest graphics quality. However, when we switch to the ultra rate, the graphics quality will adjust to an average level, similar to what occurs on most flagship devices. It's important to note that this processor supports almost every effect imaginable, providing a very advanced visual experience. Initially, our priority was to operate it at the best possible graphics quality, and the performance has been truly excellent. It's quite amusing how even in this foldable device, where typically the heating might start to take its toll, Motorola has managed to do an excellent job. The device doesn't appear to have suffered excessively from this issue, at least not yet. During this test, it maintained an average of 60 frames per second with a It showed excellent stability and the temperature on the outside reached as high as 41.1 degrees Celsius. We prioritized the refresh rate to observe the performance, and it managed to provide an average of 120 frames per second, although it did warm up in the process, significantly higher than before. And it must be noted that towards the end of the screen recording, the frame rate dropped to around 30 frames per second, likely due to the device overheating. However, once the recording was stopped, the device quickly returned to 120 frames per second and its temperature decreased. Therefore, we can conclude that while it is a decent choice for gaming, it may not be the best option for recording gameplays. In my opinion, a dedicated gaming device, perhaps with more advanced cooling capabilities, would be more suitable for that purpose than the current device operating at 100%. However, if you're not planning to record gameplays, I'm genuinely surprised that this foldable device provides such impressive power and a great gaming experience after we played War Thunder. It's important to note that we set the graphics to the highest possible quality considering the very high price of this device. Surprisingly, the device did not heat up, but this was because it significantly limited its performance, resulting in an average of 37 frames per second. And in this situation, it would be wise to opt for a simpler graphics quality to achieve smoother performance. However, given the price, we decided to conduct the most challenging test possible. As you can observe, there are numerous fluctuations in the graphics indicating that the device falls short in this scenario. It failed to even reach a peak of 60 frames per second, which is quite disappointing. So, initially it was too short. Then, we decided to play Genshin Impact. By default, it is set to high graphic quality, but we increased it to very high, achieving 60 frames per second. We adjusted everything to the maximum settings, making it more challenging for the price. In this scenario, the performance has been exceptionally good, maintaining an average of 60 frames per second. However, it reiterates what we previously mentioned, that recording the screen can increase its temperature further, and thus it is not recommended for prolonged use. Record gameplays, but the experience within the game honestly has been quite good. Even in this situation where we set all the graphics to the highest possible level, you notice that it maintains good fluidity. There are no fluctuations, no rises or falls at any time, so it consistently provides a truly excellent gameplay experience. Then we went ahead and played Kark Street. We observed the default settings and adjusted them to the highest possible level considering its high price. Just like with War Thunder, in this instance it ends up being a bit of a disappointment, confirming that some contents are graphically excessive. Complex will require more work, especially for heating. The average was 43 frames per second, with moments reaching 60, but believe there were quite a few, so considering the price, the device doesn't offer such high performance with these very complex types of graphics. For that level, you'd need a device that's more specifically dedicated to gaming. However, if you reduce the graphics quality to a somewhat simpler level, the device should be able to handle it well. But given the high price, we conducted the most complex test possible, and in this instance, the temperature was excessively high. Lastly, we played Bright Memory, checked the default settings, and maxed it out to 120 frames per second. It averaged 60 frames per second, so it couldn't reach 120. We must consider other devices at this price can hit 120. For its high price, we could put more demanding and expect this device to accomplish it as well. It's clear that the experience isn't bad at all. You're witnessing firsthand that the gameplay has been excellent, showing very good stability with no noticeable low peaks or anything similar. However, once again, the temperature has risen quite high, so it's likely that to keep the temperature within a still acceptable range, the device automatically limits its performance. Therefore, if you're looking for a device that's 100% dedicated to gaming, I still believe that foldable devices are not necessarily the best option available. However, as you have personally observed, the performance of these devices is indeed quite impressive. The fact that they offer such powerful gaming capabilities in a compact form factor can indeed be very appealing to a significant number of individuals who are looking for this kind of technology. In conclusion, I have one serious problem with this device, and that is its price. If it were a slightly cheaper device, I think I could overlook some of the small details it has, but it is one of the most expensive devices I have tested. It is more expensive than regular format top-of-the-line devices like the iPhone 16 Pro Max or the Galaxy S25 Ultra, and that makes it very difficult to recommend it. It's not a bad device, it has a great design, especially the stylish wood finish. It meets expected resistance levels, the external and internal displays are impressive, the sound is good and the camera performs well except for the zoom, where foldables of this format are weak. Surprisingly, the battery is good too. The charging power is quite impressive and it includes excellent artificial intelligence features. This includes the Motorola Assistant, which has memory capabilities that not everyone can boast about. And the software is also impressive, being clean and offering good security options. The performance is quite good as well. However, when you consider the price, you might hesitate to recommend it. Therefore, I think that when this device eventually becomes available in some, on sale as a bargain, it would be among the top recommended purchases. Currently, I don't think it's highly recommended unless you have extra money and aren't concerned about your spending. Otherwise, I suggest waiting a bit longer. We've reached the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to let us know and we'll see you next time.